Hey, it's your girl Kira Joe with another gem therapy tip. So, I got this question when I asked somebody to send in, oh, why do I look so oily? All right, I just got a glow, y'all. So I got this question. I asked if anybody had any questions that they wanted to ask about relationships. So I got my first question, y'all. And the question was, what do you do when you have an older boyfriend and your father does not accept him or respect the relationship? So that is a very good question for family therapy. So if I had somebody to come to my session and they were to ask about this, first, what we would do is just really kind of evaluate, how does that make you feel? I know people make fun of therapists all the time and say, even in a movie, I remember watching this movie, and they were like, the mother was, they had swapped bodies. I think it was Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis, and they swapped bodies. And Jamie Lee Curtis was a therapist, and she told Lindsay Lohan, all you gotta do is just say, how does that make you feel? And how does that make you feel? To pretend that she's a therapist. But that's not all we do. We do something that's a little more in depth, where you really identify your emotions. So the truth is, how does that make you feel? How does that make you feel to know that your dad does not accept your significant other? You know, it's really important to be aware of how you feel, because these are things that you cannot change. You cannot change the way your dad feels about your significant other. You can't change how your significant other will respond to how your dad feels about him. But the common denominator between the two is you. So it's very important for you to be aware of your feelings, and then once you acknowledge how you feel about it, have these type of conversations with your dad, not to change how he feels, but to express and communicate how you feel. At the end of this, you're going to have to make some very important decisions about which boundaries to set, because we are talking about boundaries here. And boundaries means that whatever you decide, if you decide to continue in a relationship that your father doesn't approve and doesn't respect, then you're going to have to set boundaries with your dad so you can preserve your relationship. What does that mean? That means that, you know, maybe you're not going to be able to bring your partner around your dad. Maybe your dad is not going to be able to be around you and your partner in certain events. Maybe there's certain conversations that you're not going to be able to have with your dad. So boundaries can be emotional, physical, verbal. You know, they're definitely, basically, it's a no-fly zone. You know, we can talk about everything else, but we can't talk about this. So if you decide to stay in a relationship, you would have to set boundaries with your dad, and just be aware of how you feel. And basically, when you're aware of how you feel, you're kind of evaluating what your decisions are going to cost you emotionally. And if you're okay with how you feel about it, set those boundaries. If you decide that, you know what, I'm not willing to set boundaries on what I can talk to my dad about, or how often I can be around my dad, or how often my dad can be around my significant other, then that means that you might not be able to continue in that relationship. You would have to be with somebody that your dad approves of, right? So I know this sounds very complicated, but I'm starting with you. You are the common denominator, and this all goes around you. What you can deal with and what you can't deal with, okay? Because you can't control anybody else in this equation but yourself. And I would partner with somebody and talk to them, you know, people that are friends and family that really support your health and your mental health and your emotional health and your family health and all the things that you value, that they would thrive healthily. Or, you know what, go to therapy, process it with somebody who's a professional. So I hope that helped you. And if there's anybody else that has any relationship questions for therapy, I'm doing relationship as a hot topic, y'all. So hit me up, and remember, mental health is health. Love you, gems. Keep shining.